Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening for some of you, wherever you are, in Europe, in Asia Pacific, or maybe elsewhere. It's my pleasure to introduce this webinar. My name is Ludovic Privat, and I'm in charge of marketing operation at Geoflex. Geoflex is a cloud provider. We deliver a worldwide service which corrects the inaccuracies of GNSS satellite signals. We support all constellations, GLONASS and Beidou on all frequencies in these satellites. Our technology was initially developed by CNES, the French Space Agency, in a 12 years program. On our data stream is available since January 2018. I'll not be that much longer on the presentation of Geoflex because we have a packed agenda today in the next 45 minutes in this webinar about land level navigation. With me today as a presenter is Nicolas Berger. Nicolas, you are welcome. Thank you for joining on stage. Nicolas, prior to Geoflex, has been working for 7 years with TomTom and for a decade with PSA. So Nicolas is quite a good expert of GPS navigation, as you will see. On the screen, you can see an opportunity to ask questions. So please ask your question during the presentation. We'll take the question at the end. At the end, we'll have 15 or even more minutes to take the question, so do not hesitate to send your question. We also have to start just one question for you. We have a small poll, actually, that we'll launch just right now. There we are. So what are the next features of turn-by-turn navigation you believe are the most interesting? Well, you have 4 possibilities for that. So go ahead. Oh yeah, we are getting some answers. And obviously you are all seeing the results. That's doing good. We'll wait for a few more seconds. But it's clear that the vast majority of you, 57%, is thinking that land level navigation is the most interesting. But we see some interesting results as well for augmented reality on the windshield. The good thing is that we can combine the two, actually. So let's go ahead and move forward with the webinar. Nicolas, the stage is all yours. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Ludovic, for that introduction. And it's my pleasure to present that webinar. So we'll get started with an evolution of the navigation over the years, and then we get started to explain what is lane level navigation and what are the use case. Then we will look at what are the technology enablers for lane level navigation. We'll present you field test of Geoflex, and at the end we'll be ready for question and answers. So feel free also during the presentation to send your question, and Ludovic will register them for the second period. So if we look at the evolution of navigation system, now it has been kind of a long time that navigation has started. And if we go to the prehistoric time of navigation, we have the ITER auto system, which was scrolling a paper map with the speed of the car. Then the first digital system is in 1981 with Honda Electro Gyrocator, and it was an inertial system with a digital map. Then the first GPS system for car is in 1990 with the Mazda Unos Cosmo system, And at that time, the precision of GPS for civilian application was 100 meters. So it was indeed the first attempt to do navigation with GPS. So I put some dots until today. Obviously, there has been a lot of things happening between 1990 and today. Today, navigation is widespread. Most of the car, it's a feature that is available. And what is interesting is if you look at some of the latest systems brought to the market, we see that the screen is becoming wider and wider, and we have integration of also voice assistants. And at the end, I mean, the trend is definitely to have a more immersive experience, and the navigation is kind of the link between your driving experience and the car. So let's look now also at the evolution concerning satellite constellation. So what is GNSS? So GNSS stands for a Global Navigation Satellite System. And actually, there are several constellations. The first of them historically is the GPS, which was launched for military needs in 1985 in the US. What is interesting is that at the beginning, there was a precision provided by GPS of accuracy of 10 meters for military application and 100 meters approximately for civilian applications. And a milestone in 2000 changed the game because the US administration decided to open up the precision at 10 meters for civilian application. And this has been, let's say, the start of booming GPS application. Parallel to the development of GPS constellation, other countries decided also to create their own constellation for positioning purpose. First of them, after the US, was Russia with the GLONASS. So the first worldwide coverage of GLONASS was achieved in 2011. And then we have Beidou and Galileo in respectively 2018 and 2019. And what is interesting at the end is that we have 4 worldwide constellation for positioning. And today, chips are able to support multi-constellation. And it means that for having 4 satellites at site to have a position, it's much more easy with those 4 constellations. And secondly, with the arrival of the new generation of constellations such as Beidou and Galileo, there is support of multi-band signal, and this is helping to assess better propagation through the atmosphere and find ways to mitigate against the multipass, for instance. So we'll get a bit more into GNSS constellation and features later on when we talk about GeoFlex, because we are leveraging on those 4 constellations and also on the different bands. After looking at the trend for device and constellation, one mega trend for automotive is the advent of autonomous driving. And one can ask is what is the next generation for navigation applicable for autonomous driving? I believe that all of you will agree that it needs to be connected. It needs to enhance stress-free driving experience, to be completely reliable, which means that no mismatching, and provide anticipation for the change of driving mode when you are changing from a human driving the car to the self-driving mode. And there are several candidates, and we saw that in the poll that there is interest already for augmented reality and also lane-level navigation. Lane-level navigation is one candidate for that next-gen nav. So what does it consist in? So lane level consists of 3 main criteria. First of all, it's a new HMI displaying on the screen of the car all the lanes of the road. Secondly, you have a position of the car that is plotted on the exact lanes that you are driving. And finally, you have a turn-by-turn navigation engine that provides you guiding instruction based on those lanes. And on the right, so we have a screenshot from the InLane project, which is a European project, displaying indeed that HMI. And Indeed, lane level navigation has been prototyped by a few navigation suppliers, but today it has not become real in terms of a commercialized feature on the navigation. So what are the use cases of lane level navigation? The first one is dealing with complex intersection. So it provides you, if you know exactly what are the lanes that you need to cross, it provides you a better anticipation. And this would apply both at nodes of interstates with multi-lane, but also inside city with big crossing lanes. One also interest, which is a kind of extra benefit of lane level navigation, is that if you have parallel roads, if you are able to tell which lane you are driving, obviously you are going to get rid also of the wrong map matching that could happen with parallel roads. The other type of benefit that we could consider are about a more personalized experience with a more accurate estimated time of arrival. If we take the example on the left, we can see that there is a traffic jam probably happening because of a clogged exit lane on that interstate. And if you can know that information upfront, let's say 1 or 2 kilometers upfront, then you would get the information to go to the third or the fourth lane, and you won't be affected by that traffic jam. And what's interesting is that at the end, if the navigation system knows that the traffic jam is affecting only 2 lanes, it's not going to give you any penalty if you don't take the exit. It's going to give you the time, the speed of the lane of the left. If we look at the use case on the middle with the pull lane, it's even a more personalized profile that you can serve with lane level navigation. That is to say, usually pull lanes are less congested than the others. And so if you can know exactly what is the speed on those pull lanes, then it's going to help you to make an end-to-end estimated time of arrival on your full trajectory. And the guidance is going to be different in comparison to what you would get if you would associate the traffic on that interstate to the average of all the lanes, obviously. And the same benefit for a specific profile would apply to taxi. And on the right, if we know indeed the lane that we are driving on, it could also be an enhancement of your ADAS features such as intelligent speed assist, where you would get the specialized speed applying to your lane. And this is a topic that we will cover certainly in another webinar later in the year. And now let's look also at the new mobility use cases that are meaningful for lane level navigation. If we take the example where there is a communication between the infrastructure and the car, there are different use cases that are very meaningful to have lane level navigation. One of them is toll gate guidance. Let's consider that you have a specific contactless access to the toll gate, and the toll gate tells you upfront which lane is the less congested. Then your car is going to drive you through all those lanes and avoid you to get stuck when trying to go from the far right to the far left, for instance. The other interest is that if you consider autonomous driving, getting the information from the infrastructure of what is the gate that you're going to take and seeing it on your screen that your car is driving you to that gate is going also to release your anxiety to get across the toll gate. If we look at the use case in the middle, drive-through, so if you know exactly in which lane you are going to be served much more easily by the drive-through. And the last example on the right is about hazard avoidance. So if you know exactly on which lane there is an hazard, you're going to be told upfront to avoid it. Now, another, let's say, inherited benefit of lane positioning is about crowdsourcing data at lane level. If we take the picture on top, we see that there are some yellow stripes that are defined, and these are elements that have been crowdsourced with the GeoFlex PPP service. And we see clearly that we are able to tell all the lanes. And if we consider what is the average speed on all those lanes, this will enable a traffic supplier to give average speed per lane. If we look at the diagram of the picture at the bottom, what is interesting is that there is a ground field that is covered with two tracks, two yellow tracks. Actually, a road has been created there. And just looking at the track, you can build up the structure of the road by crowdsourced information. So now if we make kind of a summary of the use case that we saw and make a connection with the L4 autonomy, which was kind of the starting point of this next-gen navigation. So what we see is that for those vehicle lane information is going to be useful both for the user interaction when you are driving or for driver information when you are in the self-driving mode. It will provide more safety feeling, just like what we saw when crossing the toll gate. And it will also open new mobility services by collecting a precise georeference point for the city digital twin. So we see a lot of interesting topic for the future. Now let's look at what are the enablers that could finally make this lane level navigation reality. So the first, so HD map provide very detailed information about the marking, the center line, the road boundary, so the geometry of the road. It's highly accurate, decimeter level, and it provides rich attributes such as a speed restriction per lane and landmark position that could be used, for instance, with sensor fusion. What is interesting is that HD map was developed first for autonomous driving needs, but precisely with the lane level navigation, we could find a mass market application that could come much earlier than the advent of autonomous driving. Now let's look at the second technology enabler, which is lane level positioning. Actually, top of mind, the traditional approach is to consider a computer vision system to tell on which lane you are driving. So this has been brought by what has been developed for ADAS and autonomous driving by Mobileye and NVIDIA. A computer vision system consists of camera and ECU. It's fairly complex and expensive hardware architecture. When we consider that traditional approach, it means that the navigation supplier, which is controlling all the boxes in white that are on the diagram, will need to get dependency from the CAM supplier to build up his software. So it creates a further binding in the development. And finally, also, there are some inherent limits to optical sensor, such as depending on the light, weather, and snow, which can affect the detection of lane. So now let's consider another kind of lean approach on the right, where actually we keep up with the sensor that are, let's say, traditional for navigation. So inertial or odometer sensor, map data for map matching, and the GPS. And let's just consider that the position engine is fueled with a GNSS correction feed. And we will show later on in this presentation that we can achieve that way lane level positioning. What is interesting is that it's a simple architecture, no extra hardware, it's affordable, a few euros for a mass market application. And furthermore, the GNSS correction service is a plugin, a software plugin. So you can consider that is an improvement of an existing navigation already on the market, like at the end. And the inherent limits that could affect a GNSS sensor, such as getting through tunnel or multipass, can be mitigated with sensor fusion. So now let's move to describe you what makes the technology of GeoFlex very special. So the heart of GeoFlex technology is what we call the GeoFlex factory. So it's a square on the left. It consists of a network of 80 base stations that are covering a worldwide reception of the 4 constellation of satellites. And what is the key features of the station is that they are able to observe all the satellite-based errors that are occurring, and based on those observations, create a correction feed that is then broadcast every 5 seconds towards the device. And so if we go on the right, so the device would receive the data stream of correction. At the same time, that device receives the signal from the different constellation on its GNSS chipset, and the combination of the data stream and the signal is bringing a positioning, position, velocity, and time information that can be used by the navigation. And by that way, we can improve a lot the positioning, and you will see that in the next slide concerning the field test. But I think that as a kind of summary, what is important to understand is that the technology that is developed here is providing correction all over the world. It's fully scalable. It's hardware agnostic. GeoFlex is a neutral operator for that. And we do those corrections in an open format so that it's easy to integrate by integrator. Now let's move to the field test. The first set of results here are based on a single frequency GNSS chipset. It's a mass market automotive chipset with also an automotive antenna. And we made a drive plot on the map in yellow on the suburban roads. So it's including overhead bridge. We have some drive under canopy. We have also in-city buildings drive. And all the results that we are presenting here are based on GNSS PPP mode without sensor fusion. We will explain why later on. But obviously, it would bring much, we'll discuss that at the end, but it will bring also further improvement with sensor fusion. But to be fair, we want to disclose you the result that we have in GNSS only mode. And the precision that we achieve is 54 centimeter at 1 sigma cross track. And if we look at the plot of points on the right, so this is the difference between the reference track and the estimate position. And this cloud of points is if we take 1.62 meter of span, which is 3 times of 1 sigma, we have 99.7% of the points that are inside that area. So it means that there would be only 0.3% of the points that would be outside of the lane boundary. So it's refitted for lane level. Let's look at the second set of results. So this is based on the dual frequency GNSS chipset, because we do believe that in the time frame of 3 or 4 years, this will become the de facto standard for automotive industry. And we can improve furthermore the result on the same kind of environment. We achieve a precision of 11.3, 1 sigma cross track precision, and still in a GNSS PPP mode only. So now let's look at the different patterns that are meaningful for this positioning. So the first pattern is open sky. And if we look on the left, we can see the red track, which is metric distance from the reference. And so the uncorrected GNSS is offset from the reference, definitely. While if we look on the right, we can see that the GeoFlex GNSS PPP coincide with the reference. But you may say that that's easy, it's open sky. That's right. So let's look at what happened with the canopy coverage. So here we can see the uncorrected GNSS is spoiled with noise up to a few meters. And if there were no map matching on navigation device, then you would consider at some point that the position of the car is on the other lane, on the other side of the road. But what is interesting is that if you look at a GeoFlex GNSS position, the green dots, is that they are at a decimeter distance of the reference track. So we are still matching lane level definition for sure. Now, next use case and pattern, it's a bridge and tunnels. So what is interesting is that when we get under a bridge, the GNSS PPP remains within a decimeter distance from the reference. This is because we have a predictive model that is able to continue the track even if there is no observation. And if we look at the red track, we can see that as soon as there is no observation, then the signal is offset about 1 lane. And if we look at the example on the right, so we have a tunnel that is much longer with a curve under the tunnel. And in that case, the predictive model is a little bit offset at the end of the tunnel, about probably a metric level. But what is interesting is that the GNSS PPP service is able to bring back to the reference within a dozen meters. So at the end, there would be probably an error, but just for a few meters, unless there is fusion with other sensors that are going to correct that deviation, of course. And the last example is about inner city positioning. And we can see with the red draw is that there is a lot of multipaths that are affecting the positioning inside inner city. But what is even more interesting is that the green dots are very much in consistency with the reference in yellow. But let's focus to the bottom part where we have a specific behavior. So in that part of the city, we have a very tall buildings, 15 to 20 meter high. And we can see here that the multipath on the uncorrected GNSS is creating an error about 1 block wide. For the GNSS PPP GeoFlex, it's a 1 or 2 meter difference. But obviously here also, if we would do multi-fusion with an inertial sensor, we will erase that error right away. So as a conclusion of those field tests, what we can say is that with single frequency GNSS chip, we can perform cross-track error of 54 centimeter at 1 sigma. This is compliant definitely with lane level guidance in all case, actually. And with dual frequency chipset, we can perform even much better at 11.3%, 11.3 centimeter. And we have an error that is divided by a factor of 5. So we could use it for even more granular needs, especially when we think about ADAS features. So all the results that are presented here are with GNSS sensor standalone, no sensor fusion, neither inertial map. Although we do have the capability with the positioning engine to do integration of other sensor, and we will also we can confirm that inertial sensor and with protection level will improve both the availability of the position and the precision. So this is a conclusion of this presentation. So probably you will agree with me that the advent of lane level navigation is close. The question is when exactly and at which cost? We are convinced that augmented GNSS such as PPP by GeoFlex combined with HDMap are the gate opener of the lane level features. And if you have any project in that area, either for navigation or ADAS, feel free to contact us, and we'll make sure that we find a good project together. Now I think that we are at the time of the question.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Thanks so much, Nicolas. I think you are right on time with seconds difference. So it's almost GNSS timing, if I can say so. First question, that's an easy one. Which channel is used to propagate GeoFlex correction, Nicolas?
So the question is by technology or?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. So there are two indeed ways to propagate the correction. So the one that was depicted in the slide that where we disclose the technology is embedded solution where you receive a correction feed by IP. So that's one solution. We have also the possibility to do it over the cloud, and then the device is able to send its raw data to API.
Okay, excellent. We have another question which concerns smartphones. I mean, the question is about mobile phones, but I guess it's more smartphones. Do mobile phones also have GNSS receiver, or is this a different kind of technology? In other words, could this work on iPhone, on Android phones?
Okay, very good question. So indeed, smartphones have GNSS receiver, and by the way, what we mentioned concerning double frequency receiver is a trend also for high-end smartphone to embed those. Now, indeed, there is a kind of a subtle difference between Android and iPhone, in the sense that Android has opened up the raw data API, which enables to plug a correction service such as GeoFlex, while today iOS is not yet open for that raw data API.
Okay. One other question, but this one lacks a bit of context. It's asking L1, L5 or L1, L2. The answer, I mean, we don't really understand the question, but definitely at GeoFlex we cover all the satellites on all the bands in terms of correction.
Yes, and to complete, when we use the dual band frequency for the experimentations that we described, it was on L1 and L5. But we can also proceed on L1 and L2. It depends of what we want to do, and it depends of the kind of receiver that we want to use.
On this was our founder Romain answering the question. Is nearby, is not on camera, but is there also to answer the questions. What is the expected convergence time for startup using GeoFlex GNSS PPP?
For line level navigation, there is no convergence time due to the fact that we charge an accuracy of less than the width of the lane. So we obtain an accuracy of less than 1 meter after few seconds or 1/10 of seconds. And so after that, to reach the centimetric accuracy that we can achieve, the convergence time will depend on the number of GNSS on the number of frequencies that we can use. So with the best GNSS receivers that we can use, we are able to fix or to achieve the full accuracy at the scale of few centimeters in less than 10 minutes everywhere in the world. And with a single frequency band, if we charge an accuracy of less than 50 centimeters, it is achieved typically in less than 1 minute.
Thank you so much, Romain. There is a question. This is impressive, but what is about the latency to get the precise position? Usually GNSS has some latency by itself. Can you also improve this?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
In the positioning engine, the piece of software that receives the PPP correction to synchronize this correction to the GNSS raw data measurement coming from the chipset, we are able to extrapolate the last correction received to be able to compute the precise positioning without any latency at the frequency of the GNSS measurement. And so there is no specific issue in terms of latency doing this in the positioning engine. So if you have a receiver working at 5 Hz with 5 observations per second, we are able to compute 5 precise positions per second
Another question. PPP relies on ref station but cannot estimate error models caused by multipass. What is the reason why it seems increasing accuracy so much, even in urban environments?
This is a good question and a complex one. We use a Kalman filter to be able to compute the precise PVT. And so in this Kalman filter, we are able to work on the innovation factor of the filter between the predictive part of the filter and the update part of the filter. And so due to the fact that the update based on the GNSS raw measurement is done with a full described equation of observation, which all the error affecting GNSS measurement, we are able to better detect multipass. But maybe Juliette, if you are interested to go further, we can proceed later. To be sure to fully respond to your question.
Yeah, definitely. If you have a question you want to address in a one-to-one mode, do not hesitate to contact us via my email address or the website. Definitely, we'll make sure to answer those questions and move the discussion forward. Another question, there are a couple of questions about multipass, or the correction can improve the effect of multipass, knowing that multipass are intrinsic to the receiver. That's also a good question, but I think we have an answer for that as well.
And this is the same question than the previous one. We are able to better detect another way to respond. We are able to better detect multipass due to the fact that we know very precisely orbit error of the satellite, clocks error of satellite, electronic biases of satellite, clocks error of the receiver, electronic biases of the receiver, ionospheric and tropospheric refraction. And so the last point of errors or the last component of error are due to multipass and cycle slips. And so we are able to use our Kalman filter to better detect those last two quantities. And you're right, normally those quantities are also mitigated by the measurement engine of the receiver. But we are also able to detect the undetected multipass and cycle slip by the measurement engine in the positioning engine, knowing very well all the other post or component of the GNSS errors.
Okay. Another question, could we broadcast the GeoFlex feed? I'll simplify the question, but that's the question, through DAB, for example.
Right, that's a good question. I think one comment that I like to make is that the correction service is very compact in terms of bandwidth usage. It's 500 byte consumption, which leads to 360 kilobytes per hour communication stream. So it means that a communication channel that can support those bandwidths are candidate indeed to broadcast the correction feed. Romain, you want to complete?
Yes, our correction data stream is available through internet. So you can plug to internet any kind of telecom system to be able to rebroadcast the correction. You can use a UHF radio, you can use a DAB radio, you can use a SATCOM radio that enable you to access to internet through satellite, for example, for marine application. And as Nicolas said, the size, we broadcast correction each 5 seconds, and each correction set is at the size of 5,000 bits.
Which is the same as 500 bytes.
More or less, yes. Another formulation to be to be sure. So this is a very little stream, and so this is very easy to disseminate it through various kind of telecom links.
Actually, we have one question that is pretty much linked to that. Can we test the PPP network correction in Australia? And the answer obviously is yes. The correction, and that's the great thing about the solution from GeoFlex, is available everywhere worldwide, and we are in other industry providing this correction in the middle of the ocean, and there is no problem with that. We have some experience. So Australia, no problem on wherever else in the world. Too, we might still have a few other. Are the correction available for all constellation on all about GLONASS? So obviously yes, the correction are available for GPS, Galileo, GLONASS, Beidou, in all the bands. We have a question about certification. So I'm not sure the certification will apply very well for comfort solutions such as GPS navigation guidance, but maybe we have the answer here, or we can provide you the answer later on. We are talking about the DO-178 standard. In other means, it is expected to provide all the deliverable, and the algorithm is designed to be deterministic, opposed to RTK. Question.
Yes, we are working on the certification of the positioning by PPP for railway application. So this is not in the same framework in terms of safety rules. We are working on SIL level 4, safety integrity level 4, with a tolerable hazardous risk of less than 1 critical error each billion of hours of functioning. And so to achieve this, we have to certificate the way to produce the PPP correction and the way to use the PPP correction and the positioning engine. And definitely the response is yes. We had designed specific positioning engine based on different Kalman filter without any links to be able to ensure safety.
And with also protection levels that can help to make the fusion of the sensor.
Yeah. So if you are interested in this field, you are welcome to go further after this webinar. And we will produce probably a dedicated webinar based on protection level, safety.
For ADAS purpose.
For ADAS purpose, yes. But the global trend will be the same for aviation.
Another question, very interesting question. Does your solution also improve vertical position precision? For example, for stack road scenarios, parallel overpass, underpass, and so on. And the answer is yes. In the test we have shown here,
maybe I can show you one thing. So there was two slides that I did not present, and I can maybe answer your question. So here, what we can see, so this is the error plot in the time from the drive test that we had earlier. And what we can see is that in the vertical axis, the error is also at maximum 2 meter high. So this is going to be sufficient to discriminate between the two different height of stack roads. And what is even more interesting is that if we apply what we call a protection level to filter out the wrong position, then we can remove the error to here maximum of about 1 meter or 2 meter max in vertical axis.
Thanks, Nicolas. There's a very interesting question as well. Will you share the recording of the webinar? The answer is yes. Actually, you will all receive an email in a few minutes or tens of minutes after the webinar with a link to the recording. So you can also obviously review that or share that with colleagues. Another question, I think it's probably going to be the last question. Does GeoFlex provide just the correction data on algorithm or also the sensor fusion part? On the rest of the question, I don't really understand it.
So let me answer that from a commercial side. So obviously, the heart of the technology of GeoFlex is a correction feed. So that's the first product that we commercialize. We can bind that offering with the positioning engine, and we have option on the positioning engine to do sensor fusion.
And the last part of the question of Harald was, does it require HD map or is it optional?
Okay, so maybe let me just make a small, indeed, side note on HD map. So obviously, HD map is one of the enablers of the lane level navigation. Today, we do know that the coverage is not necessarily full scale. Although the first roads that are covered with HD map are the higher class of roads with multi-lane. So that's a good fit with the need of lane level navigation. And actually, in the case that you have a road that is not mapped at HD level, you could still have kind of a backup mode where you switch back to a lane level feature to a road level type of guidance. But what is even more interesting is that the tools that we are providing with the precise positioning is going to enable a navigation supplier or map supplier to source its own map data that are going to be an overlay over the map, and that is going to provide him the lane information that would be needed to extend the service. So at the end, you have also a tool to extend the coverage of HD map, probably.
Thank you, Nicolas. And I think your video has disappeared from the film, but it's going to conclude our webinar. But before you leave, we have a last question we want to share with you. Is a rating about this webinar. We'd be really happy to know your feedback about the webinar. A good information for the future. And obviously, if you have more questions, comments, so on, do not hesitate. You can reach me on LinkedIn, via email, and obviously via the website of GeoFlex.
Yeah, feel free indeed to reach us. We'll be more than happy to make a follow-up after this webinar.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great day, a great evening, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot.